I'm Steve Bates, and this is The Real Truth. In this episode, we will explore the driver's license, what it is, what its purpose is, and attempt to correct some of those pesky online myths that are needlessly getting people fined, tased, shot, arrested, and thrown in prison.
I do not consent. I do not consent. Oh, this is police brutality.
I'm fixing
Stop.
to
This is police brutality. I haven't done anything.
I want to begin by stating up front that I am now 41 years old, and I have never in my life applied for or received a driver's license. And this fact puts me in a rather unique position, being able to see things with clear eyes and a fresh perspective by looking from the outside inwards at their collectivist control system. As with previous episodes of The Real Truth, we are going to begin by taking a trip a century back in history to the origins of the driver's license. In online forums and YouTube comments, one of the most heavily cited law dictionary definitions of the word driver is quoted from Black's Law Dictionary 2nd edition. One employed in conducting a coach, carriage, wagon, or other vehicle with horses, mules, or other animals, or a bicycle, tricycle, or motor car, though not a street railroad car. This definition from Black's Law Dictionary 2nd edition was published in 1910 and was lifted from a 1902 court case. Yes, back in 1902, the word driver legally referred to one who was employed to drive. At that time, cars were very new and very expensive. The only people who could afford to purchase them were taxi company owners, who employed taxi drivers, and the very wealthy, who also employed drivers known as chauffeurs. The first mandatory license requirement for driving was introduced in the Motor Car Act of 1903 in the United Kingdom. Every car owner had to register his automobile with the local government authority and be able to prove registration of this vehicle on request. On August 1st, 1910, North America's first licensing law for motor vehicles went into effect in the state of New York, though it initially applied only to professional chauffeurs. Today, the general legal definition of the word driver is simply a person who steers or propels a vehicle. This definition comes from Black's Law Dictionary 9th edition. And, for reasons we'll get into later, there is no mention of one being employed to drive. So what exactly is a license? Well, according to Black's Law Dictionary 9th edition, a license is legally defined as a permission, usually revocable, to commit some act that would otherwise be unlawful.
Well, anytime the government gives you permission, anytime they allow you to do something, they let you know by giving you a permit or a license. Permit is a verb, to suffer, allow, consent, to give, leave, or license. License is a noun, a personal privilege to do some particular act or series of acts on land without possessing any estate or interest therein, and is ordinarily revocable at the will of the licensor. This supports my theory that if somebody gives you a privilege, they can take it away. This is fundamental. So the government will issue a concealed carry permit. They will issue a driver's license, giving us permission. How does the government give us permission? We have rights. We give the government permission.
Traditionally, in common law, a license is a revocable permission granted to a person to trespass on the property of another, be it physical property, intellectual property, copyrighted property, or trademarked property. With the exception of privately owned toll roads, all roads are legally considered to be public property, and as such, no permission is legally required to access the public roads for your own personal use. This universal truth is self-evident to anyone who has ever ridden a bicycle on the public roads. Yet from an early age, we are told that a license is required in order to drive a car on the public roads. But the question is it really required? The answer is both yes and no, depending on your age. Generally, the licensing of drivers begins at age 16 or 17. Those who are 16 or 17 are legally required to ask permission, as they are considered to be minors and not fully functioning members of the public. Those who are the age of 18 or above need no such permission, as they have progressed into adulthood and are fully liable for their actions. I have read licensing statute law from Canada, America, Australia, and the UK, and not a single one explicitly states that a person must apply for a license in order to drive a vehicle on the public roads. There's a very simple reason for this. The word must is legally defined as a demand, yet the word apply is legally defined as a request. No level of government can ever demand that you request permission, as it would contradict the ideology of the collectivist system of voluntary servitude that we currently exist in. However, they can use legal trickery to make the wording seem like they're saying you must. The problem is, those who apply for a license at age 16 or 17 simply continue to renew that permission into adulthood, never stopping to think if they really need to. And those who applied for a license after the age of 18 do so merely because someone wrongly told them that it is required by law. Thus, custom becomes the first reason for voluntary servitude, to quote Etienne de la Boétie. Please remember, in common law, a license is a permission to trespass on the property of another. As most roads are public property, the uncontestable fact is a personal driver's license is not required for those 18 years of age or older, as it is a legal impossibility to trespass on property that is already yours as a member of the public. Having said that, I also have the duty to make it clear that a license is required to drive on privately owned toll roads, as you are in fact trespassing on their corporate private property, and as such, the driver's license is your permission to do so, for a small toll fee, of course. Now, if you are like most people, and you have a driver's license, you must obey all of the rules of that permission, or you will face a fine or imprisonment. Despite the failed attempts of many, there is no getting around this fact of law. This means the moment you receive your license, you are now legally required under statute to register your motor vehicle to a government entity, which then grants them the legal title to that vehicle, in order to allow them to tow and impound your car at your own financial expense. You remain the equitable title holder, which in the UK is blatantly called the registered keeper of what you thought was solely your property. Whenever you register your property to the government, the title to that property is split. The government gets the legal title and you get the equitable title. This means the government has the right of access to the property, i.e. towing your car away, but they do not have the right to sell your property, as that right belongs exclusively to you, the equitable title holder. As you now know, the word license legally means a permission. To get a license, you have to apply for one. The word apply legally means to ask, request, plead, or beg. When you beg your public servants for permission, that makes you subservient to them. You now have to obey their rules, as you are a servant to your public servants when you are acting under the license. This is how they went from being public servants to now being officials or authorities. You granted them the authority over you the moment that you voluntarily begged them for a license. To quote Madonna, "Poor is the man whose pleasures depend on the permission of another." So true. So far, I have been describing personal driver's licenses. Now let's move on to commercial licenses. The biggest online myth regarding the driver's license is that, quote, driving is commerce. This myth is based on the aforementioned 1902 Black's Law Dictionary definition of the word driver, mixed with faulty legal reasoning. The belief that federal transport trucking laws somehow apply to your personal driver's license. The point is, driving is only commerce if you are in possession of a commercial driver's license. If you have a personal driver's license, then you applied to the state or province in Canada to get it. So why would you be looking in federal statutes for a definition when you should be searching the state statute? So, are commercial licenses actually required by law? The answer is yes. You must beg for permission if you wish to engage in commerce on the public roads, as you are using our jointly owned property to make personal profits for yourself. Now that we know what a driver's license is, and if or when it's required by law, let's address your common law right to travel. As I stated at the beginning, I have never in my life applied for or received a driver's license, and as such, my common law right to travel is 100% intact, as I am not subject to the rules of any such permission. Unfortunately, This is where the free man / sovereign movement has gone horribly wrong, and why people are getting brutally arrested on a daily basis. I can't state this enough. If you have a personal driver's license, be it valid, suspended, or expired, you have voluntarily forfeited your common law right to travel freely. Essentially, you once had, past tense, the common law right to travel freely. But you voluntarily gave up that right and transferred it into a licensed privilege. As I have not given up my right for that privilege, I am not going to tell you how to fix your own mess. If it was you that legally gave up that right, then it is also your responsibility to discover how to legally reclaim that right.